865 AD. Hundreds of Viking longships appear on the English horizon. What's about to happen will merely erase England from existence. This is the story of how one man's death united the most dangerous army in history. 3,000 warriors, one mission, and England has no idea what's coming. It started in a snake pit. Ragnar Lothbrok, the most legendary Viking who ever lived, was thrown into a stone dungeon filled with venomous snakes by King Aelle of Northumbria. The English king wanted to make an example of him, show the Vikings what happens when you raid Christian lands. But as Ragnar felt the venom coursing through his veins as the snakes coiled around him, he didn't beg for mercy. According to the sagas, he sang. He sang about his past victories, his conquests, his glory, and his final words, a warning. How the little pigs would grunt if they knew how the old boar suffers. The little pigs were his sons. News of Ragnar's death spread across Scandinavia like wildfire. Denmark, Norway, Sweden, every Viking settlement heard the same message. Ragnar Lothbrok is dead, killed by the English, humiliated, executed like a common criminal. And his sons, they didn't just mourn, they planned. Ivar the Boneless, the most brilliant military strategist of his generation, despite his disability. Cold, calculating, ruthless. Bjorn Ironside, a warrior so fierce in battle that men believed no blade could pierce his skin. Pure strength, pure violence. Halfdan and Ubba, seasoned raiders, commanders, killers. 4 brothers, 4 different temperaments, but one shared obsession: revenge. Not just against King Aelle, but against all of England. They wanted to make the entire country pay for what happened to their father. But here's the thing, they were smart enough to know they couldn't do it alone. So they did something unprecedented. They sent word across the entire Viking world. Every chieftain, every warlord, every raider who wanted glory, riches, or a place in Valhalla. The message was simple: join us, we're going to conquer England. And they came from every fjord, every settlement, every corner of Scandinavia. By 865 AD, they had assembled what would become known as the Great Heathen Army. The exact numbers we don't know for certain, but medieval chroniclers described it as massive, possibly 3,000 warriors. That might not sound huge by modern standards, but for the 9th century, this was the largest organized Viking invasion force ever assembled. To put that in perspective, most Viking raids involved maybe 50 to 100 men. This was 30 times that size. When they landed in East Anglia in the autumn of 865 AD, the English were horrified. Hundreds of longships, thousands of warriors. This wasn't a raid, this was an invasion, an occupation, a conquest. England at this time wasn't a unified country. It was 4 separate kingdoms: Northumbria in the north, Mercia in the middle, East Anglia in the east, and Wessex in the south. They rarely worked together, rarely coordinated, and the Great Heathen Army exploited that weakness brilliantly. See, this wasn't just a horde of barbarians swinging axes. The Great Heathen Army was organized, disciplined, strategic. They used Roman-style tactics, shield walls, coordinated movements, psychological warfare. When they marched, they moved in formation. When they fought as one unit. The Anglo-Saxons had never seen Vikings fight like this before. But here's the genius move, and this is what made them almost unstoppable. The Great Heathen Army discovered something the English weren't prepared for: winter warfare. You see, Anglo-Saxon armies had a tradition. When winter came, soldiers went home. Fighting in winter was considered unhonorable, unchristian even. Armies disbanded until spring. The Vikings, they didn't care about honor, they cared about winning. So while English soldiers returned to their farms for the winter, the Great Heathen Army attacked. They sieged fortresses when they were undermanned. They burned villages when defenders were scarce. They took entire regions without a fight. By the time spring came and the Anglo-Saxons reassembled their armies, it was already too late. The Vikings controlled half of the kingdom. One by one, England's kingdoms fell. East Anglia conquered in 869 AD. King Edmund was captured and executed. Northumbria invaded in 866 AD. York, the capital, fell in one day. And King Aelle, the man who killed Ragnar, he was captured, and the brothers made sure his death was not quick. Mercia tried to resist. They fought back for years, but eventually they too surrendered, paid tribute, gave up half their land. By 870 AD, 3 of England's 4 kingdoms were gone. Only Wessex remained. And here's what's terrifying. The Great Heathen Army didn't just raid England, they nearly erased it. 3 of 4 kingdoms gone, entire regions conquered, Anglo-Saxon culture replaced. All because of one death, one mission, one army. Ragnar Lothbrok may have died in that snake pit, but his sons made sure the world would never forget his name. They turned his death into England's nightmare. They proved that Vikings weren't just raiders anymore, they were conquerors, and England would never be the same. If you want more stories like this, untold Viking history that changed the world, let me know in the comments. And if you made it this far, you're part of the 1%. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.